I'm Nick Westergaard, and this is On Brand, helping you tell your story. In this special bonus episode of On Brand Taylor's version, now that Life of a Showgirl is out in the world, we're asking, what does this new era tell us about Taylor Swift? To explore, I'm joined by Joanna Weiss, editor of Harvard Magazine, journalist, and co-author of the new book out this week, Taylor Swift, Album by Album, a deep dive into every era. Together, we'll unpack how Showgirl fits into Taylor Swift's evolution and what this chapter reveals about her storytelling, strategy, and brand. My interview with Joanna is coming right up. But first...
Marketers, Deborah Eckerling here.
And I'm Keith Smith, and we host the MPN Meta Marketing Show, which is not just another marketing podcast, but the marketing podcast about all the other marketing podcasts.
Podcasts are booming, right? We love them, and people actually listen. They don't scroll, they don't swipe, well, except maybe during the ad breaks.
But here's the secret. With the Marketing Podcast Network, your ads don't make people hit skip. We put your brand on shows that people actually want to hear.
That's right. We match your message with podcasts that make marketing nerds like us perk up and take notes, or at least nod knowingly, pretending they understand.
And don't worry, because we'll deliver your ad naturally. People might even think that we love your brand personally, which of course we totally do, unless it's a veggie smoothie, then maybe not.
If you want your brand heard without making listeners roll their eyes,
head to marketingpodcasts.net and catch marketing fans at work, rest, and play. Seriously, your audience is already listening. Make sure they hear your brand and not our awkward jokes.
Join the conversation, because good ads shouldn't just be tolerated, they should be enjoyed.
Yes!
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Keith Smith hosts a great podcast called The Fuel Podcast. Keith, tell us what these fine folks will get out of listening.
Fuel is all about the advertising business. It's like Mad Men for the ears. Every show, I pick on a hot topic to discuss or interview a celebrity from the world of British and American advertising. We chat about all sorts of things, and I try and uncover the real person behind the image using just my powerful charm, incisive wit, and incredible humility.
Awesome. Where can people subscribe?
Wherever they normally get their podcasts, from Apple, Google, Spotify, the MPN website, or just visit my website at thefuelpodcast.com.
You heard him. Go subscribe.
Joanna Weiss, welcome to On Brand Taylor's version.
Thank you for having me.
So as we've kicked off every podcast, every Taylor's version, I have my cards here, which I have revised now to include Showgirl as well. But what is what era would you like to answer a question from?
Well, one of the chapters in the book that I wrote was about Lover. I spent a lot of time in the car with Lover, and my poor teenage son had to spend a lot of time in the car with Lover with me. So I'm going to go with Lover.
All right. So the Lover story question is, tell a story about something, someone, or something you love and why.
Ooh, I love so many people and things. I am going to go, this is just sort of normal Taylor showgirl vibe romantic, and say I love my husband, who not only has just sort of been my solid partner, but has always been a musical partner for me. So he's a really great musician. He's always been in bands. And when I had a kind of crazy midlife, I spent my life being a fan of his bands. And when I had a crazy midlife moment with my friends during the pandemic and we started a band, he was our musical guide, and he has taken everybody musically to the next level. So it's like music and love coming together, Taylor style.
I love that. So we've, over the past year, gotten into vinyl and have been acquiring the different albums, and we didn't have Lover yet. And my daughter asked my wife for birthday ideas, and my wife said Lover, and she's like, I can't get that for you. Your husband should get you. Lover. So it is the theme of the album.
I do think Lover is maybe it'll be replaced by a Showgirl song, but probably not. I think Lover, the song, is her most romantic song. I really do. There's something about the combination of the waltz and the fact that she is talking about love in the mundane things. Like she's out of fairy tale mode and out of castle and tower and princess mode and into like when we have the Christmas decorations up and who gets to stay at our house. It's like, that's love. That's it.
I love that. So for those watching the video version of this podcast, I'm now going to as I walked through this, I felt like an elementary school teacher with
Are you the English teacher or the gym teacher?
Oh, well, there we go. You see, you up the game to a little more of a Taylor take on that. But I wanted to show this off. There's Lover. But it goes era by era and has this wonderful breakdown of, you talk about like the musical, your husband and everything, but you've got like the personnel and all of like the real album info that I feel like, as some have digitized their music, we are missing like the liner note aspect, but then, really some of the stories behind that. So what led to this construction of this book, or this deconstruction of these eras, and how you and your co-authors put it all together?
Yeah, the concept came from the publisher Quarto Books, and they publish a lot of music books. They're a really cool outfit out of Minnesota, and they've done books on Prince and Rush and Springsteen. And they realized that there was an opening and clearly a desire, or hopefully a desire, for another book about Taylor Swift. And it was their idea to go album by album. And then they brought 3 writers together we had never met before. We are now besties. I love them so much. So Case Wickman is a writer for Vanity Fair, and she and I intersected at the Boston Globe for a hot minute and didn't know each other, but we're divided by maybe a half a generation, and she's kind of the Vanity Fair Taylor Swift expert. Moira McAvoy lives in DC. She has written for literary magazines. She does rock and music events and marketing in her day job. And she is a deep Swiftie. Like, she is down in the internets with the lore and knows everything and schooled me. I mean, I came to this as a little bit more of a casual Taylor Swift person. I'd written as a journalist some things about going to the Eras Tour and about the experience of collectively living that Taylor Swift moment with my daughter and her friends and their moms. And so I kind of came into it casual and I think you could get a dissertation, honestly, with what you know, and someone will, if it hasn't happened already, someone will be getting a dissertation on Taylor Swift, the music, the marketing, the entire package. So I've learned a lot. And then we kind of pieced together how do you tell the story album by album, but then how do you deal with these Taylor's versions? Because that's, the most amazing business move that she made was to go and re-record those albums when she lost the masters. So we came up with the idea of, let's make those albums kind of a conversation. So that, instead of somebody writing another essay about Fearless, let's kind of get together and talk about, like, what does this Taylor's version mean? Why did she make the choices that she made? So really, we found the whole experience of writing the book was like a conversation. We had a very long and happy ongoing Slack chat where we just we're like living Taylor, and we still are.
I love that. Well, as we are recording this, it is Tuesday, October 7th. Showgirl came out on Friday. I know that, in our household, we've listened to it. We went to a Life of a Showgirl listening party with.
Did you go to the movie?
And then we went to the movie. And then I also just randomly, of the podcasts I listened to NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour. and they walked through it all. So I feel sort of like it's a bit like, to jump fandoms. It's kind of like Thanos. It is inevitable. It's everywhere. And I wonder, from your perspective, as maybe you've had a similar weekend, but do you have an early take on where Life of a Showgirl fits into that larger arc that you've spent so much time with?
Well, first off, I will say, yes, I had a similar weekend. So I've had that. I've had the soundtrack in my ears literally all day. But Saturday morning, I went to a yoga class at 8 a.m. and right on that yoga soundtrack was canceled. I'm doing cat cow to canceled, and I'm doing like Shavasana to eldest daughter. So it was like, there it was, just like deeply embedded in culture from the get-go, which is another fascinating thing about Taylor Swift, that like that woman knows how to roll out an album and make it an event and an experience. From the album itself, it's funny. I was a little off the grid this weekend from the internet, kind of listening nonstop, but not paying attention to the chatter, partly on purpose. So I was a little surprised when I logged back on Sunday night to find that some of the Taylor fans, including one of my co-authors, really doesn't like this album, because I love it. I love it. And I think that for me, I was kind of looking forward to, this was her return to Max Martin and Shellback, the Swedish producers who worked with her on a lot of Red and then on Reputation. And they are hit makers. They are pop hit makers. And they really know how to build and construct a perfect pop song. And you can see that in this album. I mean, It is full of bangers, and it is full of earworms, and it is full of just like cool production. And I was in some ways expecting it to be as exuberant as 1989, which is another album they worked on with her, right? Where it just felt like that, that was that moment in her life. She got to New York. She was on the rise. She was making it. And there was this just kind of light exuberance to it. I think there are a lot of bangers on this album, but I still feel this little sense of darkness. She's settling some scores.
Yeah.
And she is experiencing love, but with, she's happy. She's got her man. Wood tells us a little bit of what she thinks about her man, but she's box checked, but she's also gone through these other relationships and these other heartaches. And so she's sort of experiencing her happy life with the understanding of what came before. And I feel that in a lot of the songs.
Yeah, it's interesting too, and yeah, because I have a similar take, and was a little bit surprised to see people say other things, and even with one, as we talk about like what this era means, and try to think about that. I feel like some people really got caught up in the concept in a way that there's a creator I follow named KJ Miller, and she said, I don't get these people that were upset that they thought that it was titled Life of a Showgirl and are expecting 48 minutes of can music. And I think it is, and then I got into like a navel-gazing question and was kind of glad that you and I were chatting, because as we talk about what an era is, I think one way of defining it is like heavily themed. And I think for some that, are maybe not viewing it through, but with the Eras tour being such a big manifestation of those capital E, capital R, capital A eras, they do see heavy theming. But when we come back to just an album, like, am I getting to like a therapy-ish with my, like, what is an era?
I mean, I feel like she's done this to herself for better and worse, right? She has defined her music in connection with her biography. And so each era really does, in addition to representing a vibe, or maybe because it represents a vibe, it really does attach to a certain period in her life. And if you know a lot, it's possible to be a very casual Taylor Swift listener and take the songs for what they are. And in some ways, I feel like that's probably the best way to do it, because then you are just you're not getting caught up in the backstory and letting the backstory affect your view of the art. Because the more you know, the more you start picking it apart. And some of it's fun, like, oh, All Too Well is about Jake Gyllenhaal. And when I learned that relationship only lasted 3 months, I was like, boy, that's a lot of feels for a 3-month relationship, but like, good for her. I think sometimes I found that the people who are picking apart Showgirl now are really on a granular level saying, okay, here's the song about Charlie XCX, and here's the song of, they're attaching what I think Taylor Swift does very well as a songwriter is she picks an emotion and she builds a song around an emotion, and it's often a very relatable emotion. And then she builds a story around the emotion. And I think that story jumps off from real life, but it isn't necessarily about real life. She's a fiction writer. She's a creator of characters and stories, and they aren't always one-to-one parallel. But I think the more you know about Taylor Swift, the more you want to box her into that one-to-one. This is this is nonfiction. And I think the thing to remember is that it's still fiction.
That's a really good point. She's our English teacher. So, but I think that's an important distinction. And I think as the internet conversation, you were lucky to be away from it for part of the weekend. But I think having it projected on people's listening of this song's about Charlie XCX, this song is about reclaiming the masters, this song, and kind of looking at it through that lens versus one of the things that I enjoyed about the life of a showgirl on the big screen, probably the biggest thing, were the interstitials of her just telling. I mean, it's almost like a short story like we'd tell with the prompt cards, but kind of about some of the ideas behind it. And that's where I think your definition of might have been a jumping off point, but it's not. It's not the song itself. It's not this nonfiction recounting of this beef.
Right. And I think it's the more you know, the harder it is to separate yourself from from that interpretation of a song. But really, I think to enjoy these songs fully, you just got to let them wash over you, and you let the beat wash over you and let the clever wordplay wash over you. And so I hope that even Taylor's deepest fans allow themselves to do that, because I think there's a lot of fun on this one.
On Brand will be right back after this.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Keith Smith hosts a great podcast called The Fuel Podcast. Keith, tell us what these fine folks will get out of listening.
Fuel is all about the advertising business. It's like Mad Men for the ears. Every show, I pick on a hot topic to discuss or interview a celebrity from the world of British and American advertising. We chat about all sorts of things, and I try and uncover the real person behind the image using just my powerful charm, incisive wit, and incredible humility.
Awesome. Where can people subscribe?
Wherever they normally get their podcasts, from Apple, Google, Spotify, the MPN website, or just visit my website at thefuelpodcast.com.
You heard him. Go subscribe.
Now, back to the show. Okay, Joanna, we're back, and I have the cards once again. You can now pick an era for me.
Well, I feel like I have no choice but to pick Showgirl for you. I mean, here it is laid out for us.
I kind of knew that one was coming. And here's our Life of a Showgirl card. Tell a story about putting on a costume and performing.
Ooh.
Okay. So about a year ago, I have been in the consulting business for a long time and was kind of in the process of winding that down. And about a year ago, I wound down my last consulting relationship. And as I was doing so, I had like another big meeting, and I was getting dressed up in what I realized was the costume of my consulting business. That was like jeans and an open collar shirt and a blazer. And I'm like, I kind of don't like being this guy anymore. And I've been putting on this show in a way that no longer feels authentic to who I am. So
I
that
love how you defined streetwear as a costume, or business wear, attire for a certain scenario as a costume, because it really is. I
it
mean, you really
is.
do. The way you dress signals what your expectation, the way you want people to see you, and it does define you in a really fascinating way. I mean, I think, again, Taylor Swift, to bring it back to her, has done an amazing job with costuming and using the costumes of every era to define a mood, to project an image. And, it's out there in the world. Over the summer, I saw a little girl at a coffee shop wearing a little pantsuit from the Reputation era. Like, it had one leg short and one leg long, and the snake up the side. And it was just like, I know what you're doing, girl. It's your, and boy, did I think like that little girl defined me for herself, to find herself to me in that moment.
That is awesome. And it does make me think again, because I guess it's literally the name of this mini series. But the other thing about the in-theater experience, when she was talking about the Fate of Ophelia video, and was talking about kind of the different vignettes taking you through what a showgirl might have been in different periods, like posing for a painting, someone acting in a stage play, a 60s go-go dancer, and a Vegas showgirl. And it's funny because like I said, it was sort of inescapable. And now when the song comes on, I see all of the images in my head with the different parts, with the different musical cues of the little chimey thing. And it's like, it's in there now. So if you were given, as I'm sure with the book coming out here this week, I'll give my little my Vanna White as we talk about legacy media. But if you were given the assignment with Showgirl out and had to pick a direction to write about that now, what would your early directionality be on what she's telling us about where she's at right now?
Ooh, I think that she is allowing herself to be happy, and she is commenting on the kind of relationship, this simple, loving, uncomplicated relationship that she's enjoying thoroughly right now, that she probably is enjoying more for knowing and having a comparison to relationships that made her less happy. That's the strain I hear in a lot of the songs. I mean, I hear it a little in Wood. I hear it certainly in Honey, where she's talking about the ways that people misused, the sort of loving diminutive language can be a curse and can be mean if it's not coming from the right person and the right place. I just feel like that is something that she's settling scores, certainly with songs like Canceled and with songs like Actually Romantic, which I think is, again, separate from the nonfiction part of it. It's just hilarious. And it's just a really great, like, pump up way to deal with your bullies. Right? Like, what a great lesson in some ways. If you do the G-rated version of it, what a great lesson. Like, the same way that, I when my daughter was going into middle school, I got her a little bit of wall art that said "Shake It Off," because I was like, that's what a middle schooler needs to know. And a middle schooler also, in a tamer and G-rated way, probably ought to know Actually Romantic. But anyway, to get back to Showgirl, I feel like, again, it's these sort of lessons learned from the hard knocks that have taken her to a happy place. And that undercurrent of pain and hurt that makes the happy time even better.
You bringing up Actually Romantic. We were talking about someone last night, and like, that's become the shorthand of kind of what that that moment means.
Mm-hmm.
So another thing that I have learned through this podcast is you look at all of her eras, looking forward, looking back, that, you see, to kind of get, I feel like True Detective metaphysical, time is a flat circle, but the looking forward, looking back, things that you see before, are there things in other eras that you see echoed here, or vice versa, that made you think of other aspects of her bigger arc?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the one that jumps out to me is Ruin the Friendship, which I felt like could have been on Fearless easily. You sort of wonder with some of these songs if she's been kicking them around for a while, right? Right. The story of Showgirl, as we know, is that she wrote it all while she was performing on the Eras tour. And then while she was in Europe in the weekdays between her shows, she would just fly off to Stockholm and work. And I mean, like the work, she has a tremendous work ethic, but even so, that feels like a lot. So I would not be surprised if she had dusted off at least some ideas of songs that she'd been working on for a while and Ruined the Friendship. We're back in high school. I mean, she's constantly going back to high school, and high school is a terrific metaphor for, I mean, high school is relatable to nearly everyone who went to some form of school and had to deal with that viper pit and test out those relationships for the first time. So here she is back there with this kind of fizzy poppy song that's also sad and has that heartbreak and tragedy, and Abigail's back in there. So I feel like that's a throwback, right? I feel like Canceled takes me back to Reputation, right? She's got those scores to settle. She knows what she wants to say. And, and then, oh my gosh, the Scott Borchetta song. Which one's that? See, here I am putting the nonfiction on it.
Yeah. I'm trying to, it's not Father Figure. Is it Father Figure?
Yes, it's Father Figure. Yes, which is also like super clever. Love that you work with the George Michael estate on that. And, she did that song in Karma, right? That Karma to me was about that relationship. So she's revisiting that old wound again and putting herself up right back on top.
Well, it is interesting, and that's where, like, I can't decide, like, which way to look at it through time, because it is revisiting some of these themes that are kind of core themes in her life, in her work, but also looking back, and what the update on the take on that relationship is, especially when you compare, like, Karma. Mm-hmm. And Father Figure seems very much in a different place on that.
Well, and Karma's aspirational. Karma's like, I know it's going to get you. I know it's going to get you. Father Figure is, hey, I bought my master's back. I did this tour. I made my billions, and look at me now.
You talked about her work ethic, and I think that was the thing is, I talked about my Taylor Swift infused weekend, and I had like a busy day yesterday, but I did have a thought of, oh my gosh, I feel like so often the image we get in our head of the artist in the studio working on the new album is very cushy and comfortable, and like, this is like what they're doing right now. Versus we all have that vantage point of knowing what the Eras tour, even if we weren't there, seen it on, countless videos on Disney Plus. We know what that looks like and what the undertaking was. And we've heard her talk about like the physical shape that she was in, and like running and singing to be able to have the cardio, the wind to be able to do all of that. And then on top of that, which sounded like enough to be doing and it's both mental and physical lift.
Yes.
Of a new work of art. I can't even. And then I'm like, I had a few too many meetings yesterday and it drained me.
I'm so tired. I know. No, that was the most striking thing to me about my night at the Eras Tour was like, she is still going. I mean, and she's feeding off the energy of the crowd, and the crowd is feeding off her. I mean, she delivers, she understands as an artist what the show means to her audience, the work they did to get to the show, whether it was like me kind of on the pre-sale going crazy, hitting refresh to get the tickets, or whether it was spending a lot of money or traveling very far. I mean, it was work. It was an experience to get there. And she knew and respected that and delivered on that experience with a lot of hard work. I also think she is just a creative force, and she just has constantly songs spinning through her mind. I mean, there are a lot of stories in her history of her being on tour and then writing a song on the airplane back, or having an idea in the middle of the night and getting up and doing it. I just think that she has a lot of ideas, and she has an ability as a songwriter to take a small idea and spin it into a song. And so anytime a new shade of an emotion comes across, that can become a whole song. I mean, it's many, 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 many shades of the same thing, but they're all different.
Or a word like opalite, and she in the Showgirl movie, in that little story she told, you talk about these ideas kicking around, and she talked about this doc that she has with words, and it's scrolling. I would love. You wonder what is in there for. I mean, not to like. I think it's not overblown to say you're going to look back and think that's something like Picasso's sketchbook, whatever this Google Doc is that she has. That there's some words that she cringes at, but then some. She's had opalite in there forever, and seeing what that made, I think, is just just really something to learn. And I think about the other thing. I mean, my aside on that movie was it was great because it was also like you took the music video, you sat down, recorded some interstitials, intros to the songs that I think were also used on like Amazon Music's Listen Along, combined here. And then like the lyric videos are what runs on Spotify. So, without being a mustache twirling marketer, I do think it's just an amazing thing of saying, what's all the content that I've made? Could we put it together? All of this stuff that anybody can now, as of this week, pretty much see anywhere, and sell someone something in the theater that they want to go see. But I think my other favorite part of that, which I know I've already identified a couple favorite parts, I love hearing her talk in like that Zoom call early on about the video idea. It made me think of, I think in her earlier documentary, where she's talking about the video for Me.
That was quite a video.
It was. And you kind of hear her kind of like bubbling over with all of these ideas, and it's this, and then maybe we go here. And it's like, I also, back to my like consultant role that I used to play, I also wonder like what it's like when your job is taking the baton of those ideas and like making things.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, what I love about what she did with the movie experience, and I've heard it criticized as a money grab, right? I've heard it criticized, but first of all, to that I would say, boy, money has been power for her. Money has been independence for her. Yeah. She made money, and money allowed her to buy back her masters and own her creativity. So I do not begrudge her making money. It's not just about like the way, even the way athletes sort of use the salaries to keep score, right? And to keep as a marker more than anything you can use. I get it. I don't begrudge anyone with talent, right, the ability to make money, but I feel like it's a shade of something different because in the industry, in the music industry, artists are often on the back foot, even though they are the product, even though they are the creative force. And so money is the way that she maintains her independence and her power as an artist. So she's making money, good for her. She's also creating an experience. And again, we talked about how you can be so deep on the internet with Taylor Swift, and she does a lot to feed the internet. She knows how to play the internet beautifully, like a violin, like a tiny violin in a knife fight. She plays the internet. But
Well played.
she also creates these live experiences that bring people together, that give people a little bit of joy and community. And that is incredibly valuable. And I think that's part of what her fans appreciate about her.
You know, I think that's the nail on the head. Beyond like what the actual movie product is, what I will remember is little girls clapping in the theater. I'll remember the people that were kind of dancing along with everything. And then just, again, like you said, being there in community with it, I think is an important part of whatever the Taylor experience is. And that's where we, get into the parasocial relationships of it all, because it's not just the relationship with her, it's the relationship with others that are there too.
Yes.
So as we talk about this, it's all things that make me smile. And when I'm hosting the non-Taylor's version of this podcast, I always wrap up with a brand that has made you smile recently. We've talked about Lover, we've talked about Showgirl, we've talked about some different eras, but is there a Taylor song, album, era that makes you smile, and why?
Ooh. There are so many for that too. Again, I think I mentioned this before. Well, no, I was going to say "Shake It Off," which I mentioned before as sort of a
Love
good.
that.
It's a banger,
Yes.
and but the song that I still go back to, and the reason that when we were picking albums to write about or pick for this book, my first choice was "Fearless," is that I go back to "Love Story," and that to me is still. Even after everything that has come, even after the pop that she has layered onto it, even after her different musical interludes, you still go back to that song that she wrote apparently in 20 minutes in her bedroom when she was a high schooler. That is, cliche in some ways, right? It's got the princess in the tower and the blah, blah, blah. And yet it captures this emotion that I still see applied to teenagers' lives that I know. I can apply it to, different people that I know, that I don't know, that I have real relationships with, that I have parasocial relationships with. There is something about that song, that key change, that excitement, that like feeling of just like delivery in that song that I think is still the quintessential Taylor Swift. And it makes me smile every time I hear it.
Well, and it, again, kind of bookended too when you talk about eras, because with Fate of Ophelia and her talking about that and rewriting Shakespeare, and she said in her kind of story behind that, that's why I've rewritten Shakespeare twice. And
there you go.
And then I'm like, oh, I know the other one. I was so proud of myself in that movie theater for knowing that.
Romeo, save me. Yeah. I don't want to be alone.
So, Joanna, I have Taylor Swift album by album right here. It is out this week. Where else can folks go to learn more about who you are and what you do?
Well, I have a website that they can go to. It's got my name, so it's joannaweiss.com. It's got some of my journalism, because most of the time I'm a political journalist and an editor. And I'm the editor right now of Harvard Magazine, and we are at harvardmagazine.com. And we write about Harvard, the university, which has been in the news lately, you might have heard, but also about some of the amazing work that comes out of people connected to Harvard, and some really fascinating stories about the world that Harvard just happens to be connected to. So there's some good stuff there.
Yes, well, we all have something that we're doing when we're not talking about Taylor Swift. And barring any additional bonus episodes, I will probably be returning to the land of branding, leadership, and storytelling. But thank you, Joanna, for joining us for this very special bonus episode of On Brand Taylor's Version.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
On Brand is part of the Marketing Podcast Network. If you like what you're hearing, if we've made you smile, you can always listen free on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite platform may be. And please take a moment and rate and review the podcast to help others find the show. Until next week, I'm Nick Westergaard, and I'll see you on the internet.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Keith Smith hosts a great podcast called The Fuel Podcast. Keith, tell us what these fine folks will get out of listening.
Fuel is all about the advertising business. It's like Mad Men for the ears. Every show, I pick on a hot topic to discuss or interview a celebrity from the world of British and American advertising. We chat about all sorts of things, and I try and uncover the real person behind the image using just my powerful charm, incisive wit, and incredible humility.
Awesome. Where can people subscribe?
Wherever they normally get their podcasts, from Apple, Google, Spotify, the MPN website, or just visit my website at thefuelpodcast.com.
You heard him. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.